And he worked for 5 years with Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes to build Business Mastery. And then for the last 7 years, he's been the president of Growth Smart, which is his boutique consulting firm. His clients, some of the biggest, T-Mobile, Panasonic. Is that Target?
Targus.
Oh, Targus. Okay.
Target.
They're like something different than Target. I don't even know what they are. American Elf. Anyway, you guys get the point. This guy's a total stud. Big round of applause for Gene McNaughton. Thanks for coming by.
Gene McNaughton.
Oh, that was Brett.
Oh, Brett. How many of you, when Brett mentioned pizza and Cheetos, went, that sounds pretty good right now?
I know. I was like,
Am
oh,
I the
what's
only
wrong
one?
with that? No, I'm not.
Big trigger right there.
Yes.
All right. Hey, thank you, everybody. Just real quick before I go, you got a bunch of questions. How many are in sales in the room, or sales is part of what drives your business? I see a lot of you. How many of you have studied my work? 3 of you. That kind of sucks, but that's good. So we're going to, how much time we have?
We'll go for about 15, 20 minutes.
So we got about 20 minutes, and I'm not driving you anywhere or asking for anything. It's more, those of you that are in sales, I want you to think of some of the pressing issues you're dealing with, and I'm going to spend some time with Q&A. I know that Ryan's got some questions for you as well. So bring me your toughest stuff, and we can talk about it right here. I'm also really pumped that Ross Jeffries is in the room, because I could not remember why his name sounded so darn familiar. And it was years ago when I was single, and I remember somebody giving me an audio recording of this guy that talked about how to pick up women.
That was wrong.
You're the guy. I listened to that 150 times, and it
work?
It worked.
Okay.
Did it work? It worked. I was like, it was a total unfair advantage. So I heard your name. And I was so psyched because I've read and listened to so much stuff over the years, and I remember, my buddies were like, "Oh, dude, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this." And it was you, bro. I can't wait for you to talk. So I'm going to hurry up so I can hear you. Go ahead.
Is he going to tell us how to pick up women?
Sorry.
I guess it works for men too.
No.
No comment. I'm retiring from that.
All right, let's go.
Start a website with Brett. That'll get you to the beach. I'm serious. I'm starting one. I have to learn more about that. That was absolutely incredible. Hope you guys got something out of it.
Yeah.
Anybody learn anything from Brett and what he was teaching? Isn't that great?
You lost me at pizza and nachos, or pizza
Right.
and burritos,
Started
but
daydreaming.
I didn't win a lot.
Cheetos.
Pizza and Cheetos.
So,
All right, let's go.
Gene has done phenomenal presentations at City Summit. So for those of you guys that are coming next Tuesday, you're not speaking next Tuesday and Wednesday, but for those of you guys that are coming, the caliber that we subscribe to of teachers, I mean, you saw David Corbin earlier, but holy moly, this guy has just real world wisdom. You spent all this time with Tony Robbins building the business. You talk about business mastery. You with me never talked about what Tony's like. Like, what's he like personally? Is he like that, like all the time?
Well, here's what I say. I get asked this question all the time, especially internationally. And I mean, the honest truth is, like, if you've seen Tony, you've seen him on video or on television. If you've gone to a live event, you know it's unlike anything out there. And behind the scenes, he is literally the exact same person. And people ask, like, what are the things that I would see behind the scenes that people didn't see? Is his unflinchable work ethic. Like, I've seen him go 4 days on stage. Anybody been to Unleash the Power Within and done the Firewalk? Okay, Ronnie has, and Ryan. I mean, it's almost, the event is amazing, but people are going, how does he stand up there for 12 to 14 hours and not go to the bathroom? Didn't you? Anybody else think that?
I mean, there was a meme on social media that just came out, and some organization like studied what his caloric release, like all the things, and it was like running the 4 marathons, lifting weights for 7 hours, all that kind of stuff. The force and the gravity. There's this thing about Tony's going like this. You know how he does it.
Yeah.
thing.
But here's what I say
there's a
is
whole
it's that everything you see, that's who the guy is, and his authenticity and realness is absolutely 1,000% legit. Every event he does, whether he's 12 hours on stage, 14 hours on stage, still to this day, his day doesn't end when he walks off stage and we all go back to our rooms or do whatever. He goes into a 3 to 4 hour debrief, and then he'll sleep for just 3 hours. He goes debrief, goes through every single thing that he did, and he's got 4 people there that are transcribing. And when he says something new or different, because if anybody that's been a speaker, you know that sometimes the universe starts planting things in your head. And you had this happen, Ross, where you're up on stage and you just start saying things, and you're like going, "Holy shit, where'd that come from?" You ever done that? Yeah, and it's just you know, I don't want to question the source, but it happens. But he does debriefs, and you know, in terms of how he diets, how he prepares, how he really lives his life in terms of gratitude and service is 1,000% legit. It's pretty cool. It was the most amazing human I've been around.
Did that make it easier to sell and build his team, build on his team?
It did. When you, as with anything, when you truly believe in what it is you do, it comes out not just in the words you say, and guys like Ross are going to teach us some of the great words to use, but it comes out in your authenticity. It comes out in your vibration and your energy. And I'm from Iowa, so I'm not woo-woo California. But I'm like, oh, let's go to Encinitas. I'm not that guy.
Woo, Iowa.
Why is it
Woo-woo,
why is it
Iowa.
woo-woo California? I've met plenty of woo-woo people in Minnesota.
Oh, okay, well, touche.
Woo-woo, Iowa.
But there is a certain vibration when you have just 100% congruency and certainty about what's going to happen, because oftentimes the selling teams, there would be, you know, you got the people that are saying yes and they want to do it, you got the people that just flat out won't do it, then you got people that are in the middle that are in what's called oscillation. They haven't said no and they haven't said yes, and oftentimes those people need somebody to interject in their life to say just do it, because they've been to the events, or and maybe it's not just the events, it could be the product and service or service that you sell or that you endorse, or it could be like Lamar with Legal Services back there from LA. If anybody needs an attorney in LA, she rocks. Ronnie with Acro Yoga, right? Are you still doing that? But she wrote a fabulous book on that, and I still have that book, by the way. But it's just the congruency on believing. So it's not just Tony stuff, but when somebody has actually done the experience, gotten the outcome that they were looking for, whether it was happiness or fitness or different perspectives on life, that congruency comes out, and it's a requirement, especially in today's different landscape of how we buy things and how things need to be sold to all of us.
Yeah, and you know, speaking of interjecting, that's what you do now. When you're called for T-Mobile or one of these giant companies to troubleshoot, what are some of the, I want to talk about the power message in a few minutes, but what are some of the key things that you go in and start to change in an organization when someone calls you in?
So I usually get called in, most of the time it's the sales organization is peaked or plateaued, or they're starting to go backwards, and and in today's standards, it's usually not by revenue growth, but it's by profitability and margin. And in almost all cases, the reason that's happening is because there are lower price competitors coming into the market, going to their clients and saying, look, we can do what they do for 10, 15, 20% less. And you know, especially as we've had such a growing economy right now, sellers, by and large, now this is corporate space, but I wouldn't argue it on a B2 business to consumer space, have gotten a little bit lazy in that many people that I interview as I go into a company are relying upon their price, or relying upon their brand, and they're forgetting the most important element, which is the human interaction part of it. So when I go in to assess an organization, we're looking at everything from the numbers and the metrics, where are you? Then we go to understand, okay, what is everything it is that has happened within this organization to create the results that they've got? And I don't care about the results. If it's 2 million or 2 billion, I tell the CEO, I don't care what the numbers are. I need to understand what got you to the numbers that you're dissatisfied with. I don't get called in when things are great. That's when they don't believe they need a guy like me to come in and reconstruct or reconfigure and completely redo or overhaul their sales process, their marketing process, how they track their data, how they pay people. They bring me in when they've tried everything they know and it's not getting the desired outcome. I get that. I get my position. Where I really get the best information is once I hear from the leadership team on their perception of what's going on and what's not working, then I go to the people that are on the front lines, the sellers, and I interview them on a private basis. I give them complete confidentiality. I don't record anything, but I let them know up front. I said, look, I've been brought in to help this organization grow. The people I talk to are on some level of pay for performance, whether it's commission or quota attainment. So the better they do, the more money they make. And I say, look, if we all do our jobs right in 6 to 12 months from right now, and if you look at the track record of the 100 companies or 102 companies that have, and I'm not talking about where I just spoke and that company happened to be in the room, like some of these speakers will tell you, these are 6 to 12 month engagements where I'm in the trenches with the organizations and they saw quantified increases in their bottom line, their top line, their employee satisfaction scores, their employee retention scores. I mean, that's, my life is all about scoreboards, right? That's why I have the clientele I have. Let me finish. But I will get with the sellers, I'll get with the sellers, give them complete anonymity, complete confidentiality, and I want them to tell me what's messed up, what's working, what's not working. And as part of that interview, what I'll do is I'll also start to, once I get past the basis on the companies, what's stopping you from performing at peak levels, what pisses you off the most, what do you love about the company? Then I'll just say, well, you've been in sales for how long? 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And I'll go through some basic scenarios, some real life sales scenarios with them. I just met you. I've never heard of your company or the division of your company. Tell me what you do. Which is not unusual for a seller if they're being proactive to face that question. You all agree with me on that, right? Then I'll say, you've called me and I picked up the phone. And what do you say? Or you've called me and left me a voicemail. What do you say? You've leaving the second voicemail. What do you say? Now, I'll interview a minimum of 5 people, but for this example, let's just say I interviewed 5 people. And to each of those questions, how many different answers do you suppose that I get? 5 different answers. Now, you compound that based on the sequences that would be in any typical sale, whatever it is you sell, you've got sequences. You've got how you're going to have a conversation through marketing, through meeting somebody, through a referral, a friend of a friend. You've got your initial engagement that would cause them to want to have some type of meeting or interaction with you. You've got how you're going to run that first meeting. You've got how that first meeting is going to move to a second meeting or a proposal or some type of offer. You've got how you present that offer. You've got how you ask for the business, follow up, handle an objection. After they're a satisfied client, what are you doing to maintain that relationship and build referrals? But you combine those 8 steps and you just with a 5 sample set, 5 different answers. What it tells me is this, and this is my concern for probably most everybody in this room, is that every single seller that I've worked with, and it's been thousands, and since I've been in sales management since I was 24, so more than 20 years, I'll just leave it at that. Every single salesperson that I work with are using a skills that they've just picked up along the way. I've yet to run into somebody that can articulate a clear, complete system or a roadmap they follow for the sales process. I see Ross's head nodding over there as a sales pro and guy that I look up to. So that's when you talk about the crux of coming in. And once I identify that, and then I match up the individual performer metrics, and if I see that there's 2 or 3 people that are at the top, and if I look at the last year by quarter and by month, and I see some people that are consistently at the bottom and the ones that kind of maintain in the middle, one of the things I know is that if these people up here can do it in a relatively same marketplace, it's same products, same services, usually different geographies, then everybody can do it. Now, when you study the habits and patterns of top performers from 100 different companies in 70 different industries in different countries, by this stage, I'd have to be an idiot not to see that there are consistent patterns and methodologies that top performers follow that others don't. And that's where I hone the skill sets in the training.
Well, I was going to say the power message, because you go in and you help companies identify their identity. Right?
Yes.
and then that's something with, what's the philosophy that you use in going into creating a power message?
So Ryan talks about a concept that we teach called the power message. Now, how many of you remember from the 80s and 90s the elevator pitch? You know, the whole idea behind the elevator pitch is that you would get if you had 5 sellers, or at Gateway we had up to 3,000 people selling stuff somewhere, our technology. But when we were small and there were only 40 or 50 of us, the CEO, Ted Waite, said, okay, he heard about this elevator pitch thing, and so they sat down and wrote it out, and really it was, here's our company story and here's what we do, but it got everybody on the same page. I saw the immense value of having an elevator pitch, but one of the things I found, through years of doing events like these, meeting people, I mean, this is why we're here, partially by networking, that most people haven't even figured out their elevator pitch. But the one thing that I found to be flawed by today's standards in the elevator pitch is that it's all about you versus being about the person that you're talking to. And I started to play with that as I would meet people, because I don't look at myself as like that sideline reporter that most, quote unquote sales strategists or sales trainers are. They might sell a lot of books, but they're not in the grind. They're not in the game. They're not closing. You heard my client list. That stuff doesn't happen by accident, right? And that's oftentimes when I get in front of an audience like a Johnson Controls, a multi-billion-dollar company, and I've got their top sellers in a room like this. And this is a company that could afford the most expensive consultants in the world, the Bains, the PricewaterhouseCoopers, and instead they're working with a small little boutique firm out of Orange County. And I'll tell that story, and I said, don't you want to know how I got here? And that's when everything changes for the people in the room. And so we came up with this power message design, which says that when you meet somebody, the other person doesn't care that much about your history and your company and what you do. They more care about, can you do something that helps me? Let's be honest. And so we wanted to move into a message that's more about differentiation. I mean, here's what people care about you in the immediates. Regardless of what your widget is, what is the problem that you solve, and for whom? What kind of people do you work with, and what is that problem you solve? Or what are the ultimate benefits? What would it mean for me to use your thing and get something? And is that something that I want? I mean, that's really what's on our mind when we start having sales dialogue with somebody. So we really simplified this power message that starts off with, I have a group like this, so there's 50 to 100 to whatever, how many sellers in a room, and we do this group workshop. So I've got the smartest people in the company, and I think in many cases those are the salesmen and women. And I say, first of all, the power message starts with this: what is it that makes you different? And go ahead and write these down, because you can do this for yourself. And it's, again, I want to add value, so we didn't plan this. We're kind of on a little riff. Are we okay? Okay, so I'll be quick. Ryan's going, yes, we're okay. What is it that makes you different? And I used to read, I still do read work by a lady named Sally Hogshead. If anybody's read her work, make sure you're on social media with her. She's got some great insights. But what really stuck out to me was she said the phrase, different, by today's standards, different is better than better. And every organization has something called the value wedge. Most organizations compete on what's called value parity. You've got a widget, somebody else has a widget, you're going to describe how your widget is better than somebody else's widget. And what I see over and over again is the companies that acknowledge the fact that we've got widgets just like they do, but our widgets are different. I'll give you a great example of a company that's really run with this idea. Everybody here has a mobile phone, and you get to pick what service provider you pick, and you pick it for your own reasons: speed, network, price. But if you watch the TV commercials for Verizon, Sprint, and AT&T, that's 3 of the big 4, and if you took the colors away from it, those commercials would all look the same, right? So y'all agree? So you've got Sprint is yellow, AT&T is blue, Verizon is red, and they cascade their colors all over the place for branding impressions. But theirs is all about, we have the latest phones, and it's this many lines for this many dollars. Now, if you watch the T-Mobile commercials, you're going to see that 80% of their strategy is on what makes them different. Just watch this. Now, you'll pay attention now that I've said this. And then they'll trickle in what their rates are. But and I don't know if you study the data. I just study the market trends because they're one of my clients. but T-Mobile adds an average of 1 million net new lines on a monthly basis. Now that means out of the people that cancel and go somewhere else versus people that leave Verizon to T-Mobile, it's 1 million net lines per month, which is more than double the number 2, which is Verizon, who adds about 500,000 net new lines per month. And they have, arguably, I would say they have a worse network. I wouldn't say that to the client because they pay me. I have to frame up.
Everybody stop live streaming.
So Ross could help me with this, but I got to really help because that's what those sellers face. Now, they brought me in because they have run into a big problem, and here's what it is. Up until 2 years ago, the T-Mobile business-to-business sellers that would go to this company over here that has 200 people on company cell phones, or they're reimbursing them for their cell phones, they would want to go sell. You have everybody get on T-Mobile, we have all these great benefits. But up until 2 years ago, that T-Mobile rep could walk into procurement, which is not where decisions get made, that's where purchases get made, and they'd say, show us your rate plan, we'll beat it by 20%, and that's how they were winning business. Well, 2 years ago, John Ledger, the CEO, made a commitment to say, okay, we're gonna now have a competitive, if not better network than really the number one network is AT&T, if you're a global traveler. And if you go invest money in a network, where does that money come from? Your subscribers. So their pricing has continued to go up to now where they're at par with the Verizons and barely under par with AT&T. They're still the most expensive, and their salespeople were drowning because they had been conditioned to compete on price, and suddenly they'd go in and say, we'll beat your price, and they'd look at the price and go, oh shit, we can't beat that. And they're like, well, not my deal, we couldn't win it. So we came in and really the foundation of what we do is changing how they describe what it is they do. So first of all, it's being absolutely clear on what makes you different. Number 2, what problems do you solve? And if you're selling B2B, higher order business problems do you solve? So there's the problems that people see, but what is the higher order business problems? Because when you're going after big deals, there are going to be big people involved. So you've got to be able to talk at that level of how is this impacting this organization on 3 key factors. Money, this is how C-level and VP levels think. Budget/money. 2, risk. Nobody wants to make the decision that tanks the company and now they get hung out to dry. And when you choose a vendor these days, you're making a career decision if you're the person that signs your name on the dotted line. And the other one is time. Every organization at a senior level is focused on providing the tools and resources or training or technology to help their employees get more out of the day. And there's a 4th one that's creeping up hugely now because we're now in an era that none of us that have lived in, this has never happened in my lifetime. There are more jobs than there are people. So the tables have been turned now on the companies that have to figure out, like say that you went to go do something anywhere and you've got 5 offers. Now these companies are competing with each other to attract the great talent. So there's a 4th one, which is what can we do to attract and keep great talent? And I don't see that one changing anytime soon. It's a great statement about our economy, but it was mentioned earlier that we've had 10 years of a bull market, of a rising market, which if you study 100 years of economic history, about every 8 to 10 years we see a pretty big calamity. So many are saying, we're at that state right now, like we were in 07 of last year. So what makes you different? What problems do you solve? What are the core benefits that people that use what you do get? In other words, somebody has used your service and because of that they have achieved something, they've created something, they've got a certain outcome. And then the last one is making sure you're articulating what could be your buyer's fears. A lot of people miss this. And when I say fears, that says it's down to you, whatever it is you sell, and somebody else. Pricing seems to be about the same. Your websites look about the same. That's when you have what's called value parity. And what are those little things that can cause somebody to go over the edge? Well, here's what some of them are. Reviews, case studies, what you're doing on social, what you're doing when you're speaking in terms of pitching or offering valuable education. There's a radical difference because I don't know anybody that wants to be pitched to anymore,
It's true.
right? I don't know anybody that wants to be hard closed. It just doesn't work anymore. So we've got to be able to stand out in our marketplace purely by what we're putting out on social.
Big internet out there, and people have a lot of choices, right? So that's what changes the game. One more question that I have for you, and then is it okay if we open it up to?
Yeah, bring it on.
Okay, great. So you finished your book.
I did, yes.
The book is finished. What's the name of the book?
The Sales Edge.
The Sales Edge. And
Yes.
and give us a little bit of a teaser. Kind of what's in the book? What can we expect if we read it?
I've been in sales since I was 16. It was my first real sales job where I got commission. I mean, outside of newspapers and stuff, but most of us had paper routes when we were, in the 70s for us older folks. This really outlines in 12 chapters the best of everything I've learned, and it's not all like roses and sunshine. I really do a great job of looking back on the things that I failed at. And like anything in life, we will have failures, but if you get the lesson out of it, then it's really not a failure long term. Because some of the most embarrassing situations that I've been in, I look back and say that because that embarrassing situation happened, it caused me to go read the book or go to the seminar. Which
got better.
I know Tammy's here. You've been coming to stuff since 06 and 07 when I knew you. Yeah, I mean, people, like, even as a speaker, people will say, I want to do what you do. And I'm like, it's not like I just showed up and was able to speak in front of an audience. It's a skill. Selling is a skill. Being an artist is a skill.
So you, in the book, you go through all of the different, just your journey?
No, it's 12 core functions to create record-breaking sales performance. So it covers everything from mindset to this power message in detail, how to build it. It's also, and I really put this out, I mean, as anybody who's wrote a book, you don't make a lot of money on books, but you do it for legacy purposes. You do it for, to get the best of what you know on paper. This is not a storybook. This is the real deal stuff that if you were a huge client and paid me, I could say, just read the book. But I also know that most people won't read books.
The book, once again, is called The Sales Edge by Gene McNaughton. How do we get our hands on it?
It will be, and I didn't plan on promoting this. It's going to be launched on July 16th. So we will do and just publisher stuff. They said no pre-sales. July 16th will be the day with the outcome read to #1 certainly on Amazon. And hopefully you'll get an email out to everybody that'll say go. It'll be like, and I'm just learning the strategies of getting to #1 and book publishing stuff. But it's going to be like 99 cents on a Kindle download the first day because Amazon counts it by number of sales. So I don't have any secrets to hide. That's why it's going to be that inexpensive. And then on day 4, it'll go to normal rack rates, $14.95, $8.99 for a Kindle download. So if you want to get the book, hop on and get it. It's $1. How could you not?
Yeah, fantastic.
But here's the one thing I'll just say, because you asked me this question, which was what was the hardest thing? The most exciting thing about the book was not my view of how great the content was. It's the best of everything I know. You'll be the judge of if it's great or not. But the best thing I really started this. Got to write a book, right? Anybody who's been a speaker is like, "Where's your book?" And I was the perpetual. Why do you laugh? Because you're getting that.
It's so true.
Where's your book? Can I buy your stuff? And I was the perpetual. It's closed. 2014 July. It's coming out. But I've been working on this for 10 years. When I just said, okay, I'm going to do it. But if you've ever really just I'm just going to get on the keyboard and then an email comes in, or the cell phone goes off, or the dog pees on the carpet, or whatever. I could find there's a dish that wasn't cleaned that I need to get to that quick. But the proudest moment, and my girl Jen was there.
So wait, so you actually wrote the book? This wasn't like a thing where you outsourced everything?
I outsourced a lot of it, yeah.
Okay.
There's no shame. I have no shame in that game because I would try to sit down and do it and write it, and and maybe it was just like God was putting me through this incubation period to make sure I'm refining the stuff, and I got even more lessons. Had some up and down life circumstances, but for 7 years, I hemmed and hawed at it, and I'd have a manuscript, and I'd read it, and I'd hate it, and I just didn't feel confident to put it out. And then I ended up said, okay, I'm going to get, going to these seminars, like get some people to help you. Okay, well I'm not an expert writer. I wasn't trained in that. I'm not a copy editor and a graphic designer. So I put the money up, which, I'm a firm believer in life, and I know many of you in this room have done that, where you've spent the money, and like Ronnie came to my speaking class 2 years ago. Was that a good investment? Yes. Yeah, she was a student. But you spend a little money, and what happens is when you pay a hell of a lot more attention. Right? It's usually, I know if I give advice to somebody, I know 95% of them won't go do the stuff I tell them to do. But when they pay, more like 50% will do it, at least, right? But I finally put the money up to hire a company that, when you go down this path, and then it's like, well, you can hire a writer off Fiverr, and then you've got to get a editor over here, and then you've got to get a designer over here. And I'm like, I don't have time to manage 8 people in the process, but I found one company that did it all. And they basically had everybody under quote unquote one virtual roof. So I would get done with the outliner, who would then turn it over to the writer, and then rather than me write it, we did the table of contents, the chapter heads, the subheads, the paragraph heads, and then he did an audio interview. So I just spoke it like I was doing a seminar, in my shorts and flip flops, and they transcribed it. He wrote it. Didn't do a great job at first, so then I had life changes, had another child, divorce. I mean, just up to 2 parents died, 2 sisters died, and I would start and stop and start and stop. And then, there's a tremendous impact when you have the right people around you in your close life. And Jennifer, my girlfriend back there, and we got together back in October, and she was the one that really said, just, I'll handle the kids and all the stuff. You focus on the book. And I had to call the company I'd already paid all the money to and said, hey, I'm ready to start the project again. And they go, it's about time, geez. And then I got more work done on that book in 4 months than I did in 10 years, honestly. And the best feeling was when it actually showed up and
I don't want it to be brushed over. I mean, I really want to, everybody, big round of applause for this guy overcoming adversity. Questions for Gene. Anybody here, would you like to increase the revenue of your business? Everybody put your hands in the air. Okay, great. And so
say
with
aye.
that say aye.
But
With
literally,
that in mind,
any sales
you have
questions?
a question for
bring it on.
Gene. Wonderful, Brett. You have a question. Good.
Not all at once.
Brett,
Not
let's
all
put
at
him
once,
right on the
please.
spot.
No, right over here.
Okay. You got someone to bail you out, Brett. Steven, yes.
What's your objection handling when someone says, I love to buy your product or your services, but I just have no money?
If it's legit and they don't have any money,
How do you know?
what's that?
I mean, how do you
I would answer that with a question which says, you don't have any money, like you don't have any money, or you're not seeing the value in what I have to invest the money. I'd level set the field, and I've just found
You do this a lot, right? When there's something coming in, he usually replies with a question. So I'm sorry to butt in on that, but it's really cool.
what one technique based on reading. Now, by the way, you should, by this stage, you should have already sniffed that out way early. And here's one lesson to get, write this down. A hard no is way better than a soft maybe. So if you're, what I mean? So just know that if you got to this point and you've spent the time and you've had the meetings, you've done a proposal, you've presented something, and they say, I don't have any money, that's bad on you, bro. And not you personally as a human, that's just bad on you and I'm not talking about the old school, well, qualify to see if they have the money. Just, if you have the right questioning techniques, if what is on your website or what's on your social, if you're really demonstrating the type of clients you work with, whether it's consumers or businesses, then there's a little bit of an auto assumption on the level and quality of the people that you work with. And if they don't have any money, I'm like, you literally don't have any money, you're not seeing the value in what I do. And if they come back and say, I don't see the value, then you're back in the game. So you're saying there's a chance. No, you don't say that. 1 in a million. Yes. Right. So just tread lightly, because just nobody wants to be pushed and the best people that buy from you are the ones that gladly buy, and they're going to do the shit that you teach. I mean, that's and if you are really playing long tail as it relates to sales, that means not just creating the sale, but the sale is the first step of the stage, and then it's like, I'm going to be a what do you call it? I'm going to be a maniac in making sure this person gets the value out of what it is my widget does, so that I can come back to them 2 months, 5 months, a year later and say, remember back here when you were this and you were talking about all these problems or what you were trying to do, and here we are a year later and now you've done all that. And they're like, wow. Because here's another little thing, is that clients have short-term memories. If anybody's been in sales for a long time, you could do something out of scope, you could do something in advantage, like it's normally a 2-week shipping, but you get it to them in 3 days because it's an emergency, or you give them extra advice and consulting. They forget that shit all the time. So you've got to make sure you're tracking great notes. How this client list, and Ryan only read a few of them, has gotten to where it is, it's not come from cold calling, right? Some of them have, where I've just done the proactive reach out, or somebody saw me speaking at an event. Clients have come out of the City Summit. And by the way, GeoVera just had their all-time record-breaking month in May, and then they broke that in June. Talk to Otto, what's he do with?
He's just a sponsor.
Yeah, so he's ponied over the money, but he's
Not just a sponsor.
no. But just think about this guy Otto. He lives in somewhere. In
He doesn't work. He doesn't work for the company.
No, but
he lives in Europe.
He lives in Europe, and he spent the money to come and do this. And Ryan introduced us, and now we've gotten involved. And his $20 million a year company that we're struggling, and you can do 20 million in revenue, but if you're only keeping 4% in margin, it's really not that big of a business, right? Because it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And through the interjection of the universe, whatever, but now this guy's business is going like that, legit, not pie in the sky and unbelievable things, but legit dynamic growth. And it's just same thing. I interview his reps, they're all doing something different. A couple of them had some good things, but then we interject the system. We get everybody singing off the same sheet of music. We put, they had, anybody heard of Salesforce.com? They had Salesforce.com and were spending the money, but nobody was using it. You know what I mean? These are like prevalent issues, and even billion-dollar companies, it's just, there's so much upside opportunity. So back to the objection handling.
Did that answer
Yeah,
your
Ross.
question?
One of my, I have a lot of mentors in life that I've never met, that I've only read and listened to. This guy's one of them, so I didn't know you were going to be here.
One comment I'll make is 95% of the time when a prospect makes an objection, they don't really know what the real objection is. It's autopilot.
Yeah.
Most of the time they're looking for certainty that the decision is a good one for them.
Yeah.
And here's what I find is the work you do up to the ask is that's where the real rubber hits the road. There is no like when I do just general sales, the 7 steps. It's not the pyramid that says prospect, qualify, propose, close. And I call this the pyramid of emphasis from old school sales managers, because they just focus on the close. And I had that driven into me so hard in my early days at Gateway that I literally thought closing was something you did to people. like legit. I was 24. When you don't know, and somebody's the mentor or the boss, and they say close, buy or die. That's what I was taught, and it felt inauthentic. And when leads are scarce, and you got somebody that sniffed the word computer. I was just a hungry, tenacious young guy. But I found that over the course of time, and you mentioned like Tommy Hopkins and some of the old schools, Jim Rohn and Tommy Hopkins, and Brian Tracy had some good stuff. Og Mandino was another one. Dale Carnegie, just some of the best of the best. I mean, some of these laws that they teach, they are no different today. How to Win Friends and Influence People was written 80 years ago, but if you read that book, you will still get absolute valuable gold out of it.
Yeah.
It was the first book I ever read that, like, holy shit, there's answers out here that my dad didn't teach me, and they certainly didn't teach in high school. But I look at the pyramid is reversed, where it's on the top up here on the pyramid, it's mindset and preparation, then it's rapport, then it's questions, really deep diving on the who, what, where, when, and why. What are the problems, or what are they trying to accomplish? What's it going to mean to have that accomplished or not? What's a story of somebody else like them that have said yes to you and gotten the results? And you do all these things right. The very little bottom of the pyramid is the close. There's not. I did go to the Tommy Hopkins Master Closers Academy. Your credit card or mine? Just some of the silly stuff, but you got to go through that stuff. There was still, it was still part of the osmosis of growth. I'm sure some of the stuff I teach right now may not be as relevant in 20 years when a robot's doing it, right? Not really, but possible.
Can we do one more question?
Yeah, I'm like,
Or
way
were
over
you
my
finished?
20
Oh, you
minutes.
finished? Okay, one more. I'm sorry. Manny had his hand raised for a little while. Manny.
So let's say you get it down to the offer portion of a interaction. What are your thoughts on having one offer versus multiple offers to choose from?
I believe in the power of three. And one organization, we completely radically shifted what was called their average order price by offering three options. And here's the order I like, and I'd love to get Ross's thoughts on this. And I don't know if there's any other sales pros. This is just one guy that I've read his work, and I believe in the stuff he teaches, and even though some of it's covert, but it's all good, right? It's all covert, that's right. What if you, like me, decided to... But
I say it's covert, it's hard.
it's NLP for dating. I mean, come on. Anyway, but I love it.
Okay. You keep digressing into the thing with Ross. You guys have a buddy, thing.
No, I never met him. I was just going through one of my old notebooks, and I had taken notes out of his stuff. Okay, so Manny, here's what happens. What I like to do: present three offers. I build the most expensive premium offer that is what I would present first. If you want every bell and whistle, the quote-unquote old school Cadillac of everything, it's got all these great things, and here's what it is. Now, I do that without the intention that somebody is going to choose that offer. And then I got surprised that some people do choose that offer. And they said, well, that's not quite that's way more than what I thought. Yeah, you can just start at an entry level, this is offer number 2, at this one. And this has the bare basic, the outcome of your widget is. But based on everything we've talked about, Manny, I think this second option is going to be just right for you. And here's why. Then I go into now this is the offer that I would want them to choose. So they feel like I'm doing them a favor by saying, you probably don't need all of this. And we do have an entry-level offer that I don't think, based on what you told me, is going to be enough. But everything we've learned and what this says and what that says and what you told me in this part of the question says that this would be the best one for you. And here's why. And, when I started working at Tony Robbins, he sells, say there's 5,000 people in a room, and we had 3 levels of seats. So we had the general admission, we had executive, we had VIP. And if you've been to that event, it's like people are waiting at the door. Who's been to a Tony event? And as soon as those doors open, it's like a cattle call, and they haven't eaten for 2 weeks, and they're just sprinting to the chairs. But one of the things I found is that as I started studying the data, and there's always great truths in the data, you take out the noise and just show me the friggin' raw data. I found that when I started, more than 60% of the tickets sold were general admission. Then we'd have a handful of execs, and then we'd have the VIPs, which were in those days were $1,195. Now, when you're selling seats to an event, a chair is a chair. Now, people will pay a premium to sit up front. We get that. Concerts, first class in airline flights. We're socially conditioned around that. But as I started listening to the calls to say, this is odd, why aren't we selling more VIPs? Because we're selling this chair for $495, or that chair back there where Ross is sitting for $495, and this chair for $1195. Why wouldn't we have more people sitting up front? So I started listening to calls, and one of the things I found is a lot of sellers will sell the way they would buy. So when somebody called and said, I want to come and see Tony, they'd say, well, seats are $495 or whatever it was, $595. But they wouldn't even bring up the other offers. And I'm like, why wouldn't you bring that up? And they go, well, nobody buys that. I said, well, maybe it's because you don't bring it up.
Yeah.
So I mandated, and we did lots of training on this. I helped them understand the psychology of this, but we started with the goal, and then we did another experiment. I said, okay, what if then we started selling, we went from 70% general admission to almost inverting that to, it was more like 50% on VIP. So the dollars per seat drastically went up. And we did an experiment in San Jose in 2006, and I said, well, even now that we have so many people in VIP, it's not really VIP. So when you got 2,000 people that are VIP running to get to the front so Tony can spit on them or whatever, talking, I'm not kidding. There are that kind of raving fans out there. So I said, let's add another one called the Diamond. And I said, let's just try. We have nothing to lose, and we're only going to offer 100 of them. And we're going to make those seats guaranteed to be first 2 rows, because there was 50 at this stadium. But we're going to charge $24.95 for those. And everybody's like, there is no freaking way that somebody's going to pay when they've been. And I said, okay, we have nothing to lose. We don't sell them. We'll just put VIPs there. What do you think sells out
The quickest.
the
Yep,
quickest?
yep,
The
yep,
Diamonds.
Diamond.
And sometimes you've got to try those. If you ever, any baseball fans in the room? Okay, so you watch a baseball game. Pitcher is ahead of the batter. The count is 0-2, so they've thrown 2 strikes. Now, what does a typical pitcher do on the 3rd pitch? What's that?
Does a breaking ball.
Does he throw a breaking ball for a strike?
No,
No, outside.
tries to bait him.
You try to bait him. So it's called a waste pitch. So what you do is you throw them off by throwing the ball, way high or on the ground, and sometimes they swing and strike out. But they want to change the way somebody looks at something. So I look at the premium offer as that. But sometimes the right-minded person will take the premium offer, and you'll go, holy shit, I sold one of those. Oh, sounds good, sir. Right? Well, I should have been doing this a long time ago. So I say have a premium, have the Bearline baseline, and like in my company, if somebody wants premium and they get to work directly with me and my senior staff, there is a very expensive cost to that. If they want to get the content, but they can't afford that, and most can't, then add video-based online stuff. And now the trend is we've bought the video-based stuff, and first of all, a lot of it's for free on YouTube in 2-minute, 4-minute increments. But then it's people say, well, I did that and I didn't watch it. Well, then probably you might want to get some accountability. And in that case, we have registered coaches, certified coaches, that will not only hold you accountable and get you into the content on management, sales, marketing, and CRM, so Salesforce.com, but we're going to have somebody hold you accountable. So we've got if you really want to go for it and get hands-on, direct advice from Gene, it's up here, video down here, coach here, and now because we have demand on coaching, it's like I've got premium coaches. Somebody that's been in business 20 years is a hell of a lot different than somebody that's been coaching for 2. Somebody that was the former vice president of marketing for Nestle, you just got to pay more to get that guy versus the person that has been in sales and is really, really good, but they just don't have the tread on they don't have the salty gray hair of being in the wars for 30 years. So now we have 3 offers of coaching.
Fantastic. Any other questions for Gene? Everybody, big round of applause for Gene McNutt. Yeah, who learned